Hello everyone, welcome to Lush and Salty Aquariums. My name is Stefan. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. New aquarium, new aquarium, new aquarium alert. Set your phasers to stun. All right everybody, I set up a new fish tank on the side table that is behind my chair. Say hello to Elmo, he's sleeping. Let sleeping dogs lie. Anyway, I never thought I was gonna have a fish tank behind me, but here we are. I was able to do a ton of cleaning and tidying up in the fish room, which meant I freed up some very logical and easy to access space, albeit behind me, for a nano fish tank. And this is the setup. It's not complete yet. I wanted to film after I had fully planted it, but for reasons that I will discuss, I wasn't able to do that. And so I decided to just go ahead and film this video for you now and talk about the various things that I am trying to do, what's going right, what's going wrong, the equipment, etc. So first things first, I wanted to try and do my first true Iwagumi, which in the loosest sense of the word means a fish tank that only has rock and a minimal amount of plants, typically 3 species or less. And I'm about 90% on board with that. I think I have 4 species of plants in here, if you count the moss, which some people might not. So there's that, okay? This is a UNS 30 centimeter cube, so it's approximately 7 gallons. A beautiful fish tank, low iron glass. The 30 centimeter cube, the 7 gallon size, is fairly common, and other manufacturers make a super similar tank to this, including the Petco brand Aquarium and ADA, and probably some others, and certainly some others. It's a perfect footprint for a nano-sized cube, a desktop tank, etc. It's big enough to where you can do some things, but small enough to where it will fit in a space just like this. You see it next to my makeshift curio of old aquarium nostalgia pieces and some literature, etc., and fun wallpaper in back. But this little spot here is what, 15 inches from the edge, maybe 16, 17 inches from the edge of that box to the edge of the space here. And this tank is somewhat less than that. I forget the exact dimensions, but 30 centimeters, so whatever that equals in our American system, so a little over a foot. In any event, the Iwagumi style is super fun for me to work with, and I watched a crap ton of videos to learn all I can about how to do this type of aquarium, the rules for it, and the options and inspiration. And there's plenty of that, of course, online, so thank you very much. Sirius stone is the rock I chose, and you can see it here. It might be the most commonly used rock in an Iwagumi, especially for people beginners with this particular type of aquarium. And despite all my other fish tanks, I am a novice or a neophyte when it comes to the Iwagumi style. I'm so used to a ton of plants and using wood that I have to consider myself a novice here. I think I did a pretty good job. Let me tell you, the rules for an Iwagumi are odd numbered rocks versus even numbered rocks to create the right tension that is naturally occurring. It also looks better to the human eye. There's a whole bunch of really interesting research about that online, and it's easy enough to find and watch videos about experts and how they talk about it. Takesha Amano, if I'm saying his name right, the very famous aquascaper who pioneered this hobby, if you will, and in particular the Iwagumi and nature style aquarium. There's a whole bunch of good stuff about him and what he was able to do. Sadly passed away not too long ago. So odd numbered rocks, generally speaking. There's a mother stone and then a couple supporting stones, and then tertiary or peripheral stones. And they all have Japanese names, which is awesome, but kind of like knowing the original Japanese names of movie monsters like Godzilla. I don't know what they call them. It's all online though, but it is a mother stone, and I have this really fun face rock here, and then some supporting stones. Now ideally the supporting stones wouldn't be equal to the height, but I also have a lengthy part that I married to the mother stone, so technically it is not in violation of the Iwagumi aesthetic. And I have obeyed the rule of thirds, or the golden rule, where you have the sweep down here and then a slight sweep there with this particular awesome rock. Look at that, it looks like a face, right? Just peering up at us. Originally, the theme of this was faces, sort of like Mount Rushmore, and then you had this individual here, which looks like a person, like a Stonehenge or an ancient sculpture, somewhat man-made, of a person or a god or a deity. Then you have this figure like that, and he's looming upwards, and even that vertical stone there, it has moss in its crevice, but that also had a face. So I had face 1, face 2, and then 3 faces, and that's what I was gonna call this aquarium, this Iwagumi, originally. But you know, I've somewhat obliterated that by using moss in those crevasses over there, and I'm sure the plants are going to do what they do and pretty much obscure the face concept, and I'm down with that, right? It's like your face, if you don't shave, the beard eventually obscures a lot of the features of your face, and that's what plants will do, usually for the better. I suppose if you're a super disciplined Iwagumi aquascaper, you could argue that that could be for the worse. But the nature style appeals to me too, and I've tried to inject some of what I love about that into this Iwagumi without screwing up the aesthetic. So if you look at the general scape, it flows down from left to right, following back to the front of the scape, creating that flow, which is something you really look for in an Iwagumi, regardless of the other rules. You certainly want a good flow, and then you want shallower in the front and sweeping up to the back. And that was where I had my first problem. Originally I had the aqua soil equal to the front. It was as high as it is here, and I had planted some Monte Carlo, which is this plant here, to be my main carpeting plant. But this morning I just had an epiphany that it was too high in the front. I love deep substrate, but I wanted in this cube to get as much depth and perspective as I could. So I literally pulled out the Monte Carlo that was here. And by the way, that plant came in crappy. It was just not a beautiful potted specimens. So I moved the best of it over here to create a pretty robust start. Hopefully it'll start to grow and be more healthy. But I put all that was healthy over there. And then with a siphon tube, I just sucked up a couple cups of this aqua soil to create a more shallower section there. My intent is to continue the Monte Carlo throughout this empty space here. You plant all of your space in a Monte Carlo, all of your ground space in a Monte Carlo, and then Monte Carlo and then Iwagumi, and then you encourage through the back. And let's talk about through the back. So first of all, facing this godlike stone, I have some Helanthrium tenum that I pulled, or tenellum that I pulled out of one of my other aquariums. This is somewhat of a violation. In theory, I would commit the whole front to either Monte Carlo or perhaps this plant, but I'm gonna do 2 there and just have this be around the face rock here, and then the rest will be Monte Carlo. There you see the first inhabitant, a juvenile mystery snail. I have it in there to help me with the cycling process, and I suppose potential algae that could form, although I'm very much managing to avoid an algae bloom, and hopefully I'll remember to talk about that. I put some flame moss or willow moss and Christmas moss. It's 2 of the 3. I just not sure which one is which. And I had all this in my other tanks growing on those moss racks that I always talk about. And so I put some in the crevice over there, and then forgive the reflection, there's nothing. Yeah, I can avoid that. Let's see. And then right in there, and then look at how green and beautiful that is right through there. And this is Japanese clover, or Hydrocalte triple-tate. Oh God, I call it Japanese clover. Super common plant. So that would be the 2nd or 3rd plant. And I just have it here following up the scape into that crevasse, which I put some aqua soil in. Not a lot, but it definitely serves as a little bit of a planter. And this plant is doing really good in the early going. And then back here, and this is kind of fun, and I had intended to do this from Jump Street. That is all pearlweed, common pearlweed. And so the concept is to create a higher back carpet of just pearlweed, the easiest plant in the world, and keep it trimmed at some point where it's aesthetically pleasing to either surpass the rock height and then trim it along its flow pattern, or to keep it lower. But that, that should do great no matter what. And we'll see. I got all these little tops in here, and they're very fragile. I got them from an online seller. I just bought like 50 pieces of pearlweed for $7 or something, and planted them best I could like that. They should respond really well. Now, the only reason I have these floaters in here, they look okay, but I want as much light as possible. But the only reason is in the first couple weeks, it's a pro tip to put in floating plants to help avoid any ammonia spikes that are likely to happen when you put in a whole bunch of new aqua soil, which I have here. I think this is fluval stratum. I usually use UNS contra soil, but I had a whole bag of fluval stratum that I got as some sort of prize at Aquashella here in Chicago, so I decided to use it. And speaking of Aquashella in Chicago, I was able to get one of the new Aqua Clear 20s, and I'm using that, this hang on back. A lot of people don't use an HOB on a new Iwagumi, but I am. And boy, is it quiet, beautiful, just awesome. And there's so much you could talk about this filter, and I'm not gonna do a product review, but the new line of Aqua Clear, there's plenty of reviews about them, and so far so good with this. It's quiet, elegant, and for a contraption, it looks pretty good. It doesn't seem to screw up really that much what I'm trying to accomplish here in this aquarium. I will be taking those floating plants out pretty soon, in 2 or 3 weeks, unless I really grow to love them. I mean, I don't hate that look right there, but I do want to make sure I get as much light as possible. Even though these are easy plants, I want it to be uniform so that, in particular, the Monte Carlo grows lush and plush, and I will keep it trim and dense and awesome. And there's a lot of shadows in here because I wanted that that tension. If you could see this rock here, it literally is hanging over the the ground there, so it's like when you're hiking and you go under an outcropping and it makes you get a little bit of the heebly-jeeblies. I wanted that tension. I mean, look at that. To me, that looks really, really cool, and it plays off the aggressiveness of, say, this face here. There's just something aggressive and exciting that has a wonderful contrast to the serenity that comes with the Iwagumi. I'm using CO2. I think with this style of aquascape, you really have to. Otherwise, you're gonna get, you know, mediocre carpeting growth from something. You might have a lot of luck with your Japanese clover, but the moss won't be as lush and plush. It'll be good enough, and perhaps the Holanthium will be good enough, but Monte Carlo is never great. At best, you can get fair carpet without CO2 unless you're really, really good and lucky and have terrific light. Speaking of light, this is the O&F flat nano aquarium. They sort of came out with this beautiful piece of equipment a few years ago. I had one in California. This one is run by the app. Now the app is supposedly very simple. I had problems, but that I attribute to my own ignorance. Sometimes I just am stupid when I'm dealing with instruction manuals, and thank you, YouTube, for helping me out. I was able to figure out how to first pair the device, which is you have to do it within 10 seconds or you have to start over. So there were some issues, but I think I've resolved them. I'm doing about a 7-hour period at 100%. And for this light, it's a pretty strong light. The RGB, the PAR, the amount of lumens, all that stuff is way up there. And I had wrestled with putting a more common LED, you know, I mean by common is the kind that you sit on top of the aquarium. And I was looking at a twin star like I have in one of my other setups, and that would have worked fine. But I'm glad I have this, because one of the cool things is you can literally just move it out of the way without having to take the light off and on the aquarium and deal with the cords and stuff. So I do have CO2, and that CO2 is one of the nifty little gadgets. I've never tried it before. This is from an ADA company, Duo, D-O-O-A. You can get this system at Aquaforest online, which is a San Francisco store that I honestly used to go to when I lived in that area, but now it's one of the only places where you can get a true amount, like a real array of ADA products. So this cool CO2 is a high pressure small canister. I believe it lasts longer, or cylinder, it lasts longer than the fluval counterparts, which can only maybe work for a few weeks before you have to replace them. It has a really sleek little regulator, and then while I'm not using a solenoid, I do have to turn this valve on and off when the lights go on and off to complement the CO2, but I do not have to recalibrate the CO2. I can just use that valve and it'll stay on but shut off. There is a tiny solenoid you could buy, but it's like 150 bucks, and enough is enough. I'm able to deal with it. You can see that the kit that I got came with a lovely little built-in bubble counter diffuser. It seems to be working really, really well. I have the bubbles coming up, and then the AquaClear is pushing them down, and hopefully you can see the bubbles all the way up in the front there, and that's what you want. You want max coverage of light and CO2 to both rid yourself of algae and to stimulate the carpeting growth. So this was originally going to be an aquarium to put all the fry for my black fire endlers and maybe a couple other baby endlers that I'm starting to get in the fish room. And before too long, I decided to just make it a Iwagumi. I'm still going to put endlers in here. I think that'll be so cool, and I can have more than just a few. And since I already have classic species like neon tetra, green neon tetra, and ember tetras in other aquariums, those species typically used in the Iwagumi, I'm going to forego and I'm going to do an Endler tank, but I'm not there yet. I need to get some more Monte Carlo for this space, and I'm waiting to see if I can find some here in Chicago and just drive and get a couple pots, or if I have to go online again. And that's where I'm at with this aquarium. As I talk about it with you here in real time, I'm feeling pretty good about what I've done, the rules I've abided, the ones I've broken. If you have any questions or you want to comment, you know I love hearing from you, and I super appreciate it. Oh, there's a cool angle right there. It bisects the mountainscape. Sirius stone is so beautiful. You know, whether I keep the moss in there or not, and I won't unless it stays really lush and plush, I'm just happy looking at the stone. I think the stone is so incredible. It reminds me of hiking in parts of California, or Yosemite, you know, any of the great national parks out west. So cool. But also a little bit, speaking of national parks, a little bit of Mount Rushmore here with those 1, 2, 3, 4 faces. All right, everybody. So happy to share this new tank with you. As always, keep your hands in the tank, albeit super carefully. Ciao for now.